The Vedas were written at different times by different authors over a span of about 10,000 years, with the Rig Veda being written about 15,000 years ago and the Artha Veda being written only 5,000 years ago. The Vedas were a set of books and chapters that guided Hinduism in India by advising people on what to follow through the format of hymns.
Now, what one must understand when learning about the Vedas is that it was basically like the Hindu version of the Christian Ten Commandments, in that the Christian Ten Commandments basically told the Christians what to do and what not to do. And the Vedas were basically the same way. They told the Hindus what to do and what not to do. Now, one of the only differences between them was that the Christian Ten Commandments were basically rigid laws that the Christians had to follow. So, for example, thou shalt not murder. The Christians, obviously, were not allowed to murder. But with the Vedas, they were basically only laws of advice. And so, for example, vegetarianism was only recommended in the Vedas. But if you go to India, you'll see plenty of meat-eating Hindus, simply because they weren't commanded not to eat meat. Another difference between them was that there were only 10 commandments. But in the Vedas, there were thousands and thousands of hymns.
The Vedic scriptures wrote about basic societal values, including military science and their tactics of warfare, mathematics, music and dances, and the original caste system. The original caste system in the Hindu society is not as it is today. Today there are 4 levels in the caste system: Brahmins, who are priests, Kshatriyas, who are warriors, Vaishyas, who are merchants, and farmers, or the Shudras, in the labor class. In the caste system thought of today, an Indian's caste is determined by who their family was. If an individual born into the Vaishya caste, he or she is expected to marry another individual that is a Vaishya. However, the original caste system was fundamentally different from that of the modern caste system. The original caste system stated that one's caste was not necessarily determined by their family.
A hymn from the Vedas states a famous quote, "I am a bard, my father is a physician, and my mother grinds the corn." This quote shows how people from the same caste could have any variety of jobs and did not depend on their caste. This gives a variety of opportunities for each person in society.
The original caste system was based on one's personal qualities and by one's karma or action. Indian society honored people by their achievements and not by their caste. All the castes are equal in their own work. If one were to choose to not be their caste, they would not have to be.
The story of the Gita, Krishna, who is a god who descends upon the earth, explains to Arjun, who's a warrior in the Gita, that once he stops doing his duty as a Kshatriya, he will no longer be one. And by Krishna saying this, he's saying that the caste is not dependent upon birth, but rather is dependent on one's duty.
No caste can survive without another. In fact, all the castes had to work together in order to perform well as a society. You can compare this to the human body, for example. The human body has 4 major parts: the head, the arms, the torso, and the legs. The head represented the Brahmins because they were responsible for the decision-making, the thinking, and planning of society. Right below your head are your arms. Your arms represented the Kshatriyas because they protected society, just as your arms and your hands protect your body. Below your arms is your torso. Your torso relates to the Vaishyas because the Vaishyas were responsible for the production of society and keeping it together. Below your torso are your legs. Your legs represented the Shudras because they were responsible for the physical labor that your legs do.
The Vedas mention of the value of war as a way to be true to one's dharma, or duty, in the Hindu society. By quickly realizing the value of war, the Hindus were able to create a well-developed army. These armies, as written in the Vedic scriptures, were to consist of the people in the warrior caste, or the Kshatriyas. The Hindus had 2 ways that they fought. There was Dharma Yuddha warfare and Kutta Yuddha warfare.
Now, one of the reasons the Indians had a good army was they realized early on the importance of elephants in warfare. And commonly, as one of the tactics that they used, was they took their elephants and charged through the enemy's armies.
The Vedas also gave the laws of warfare, many of which were used in the Western civilization for centuries onward. These laws told the Hindus that in order to conquer, the conqueror cannot simply attack without warning. They would have to send a message to the country or land that they would say, "Fight or submit," and the enemy would of course respond by sending the messenger back safely. This idea was used by almost all neighboring countries, and finally to those in the West, such as Greece and Rome. If the Hindus sent this message, they didn't want their messenger to be killed, so the Vedas also stated that one could not kill the enemy's messenger.
Gandharva music is ideally the music of nature. And the connotation of nature, and therefore Gandharva music, is bringing peace, harmony, and good health to people.
If you can hear the sun rising, the moon shining, and the sun setting, you can hear Gandharva music. Vedic sages recognize this type of music, and they spread it as a new type of classical music in the Vedic civilization. It was the idea that heavenly music can be experienced on earth. In order for humans to enhance the beauty of the music, they dance spiritually in mainly 6 different ways. The Manipuri, for example, aims towards spirituality, and it is also enjoyable at the same time. This type of classical dance is said to be soft and mild, yet the most meaningful. This jumpstart of classical dance essentially paved the way for later forms of dance. During the Indo-Aryan period, people danced to show their devotion to God. The Vedic scriptures set the guidelines for human life and how to maximize its potential.
Many people lived according to the Vedic scriptures. The Vedic scriptures provided India and the surrounding countries as well with music and dance, and it assimilated into people's culture and the cultures of the next generations to come.
Mantras are chants where you say with devotion to God to make this vibration in order to show that one is lessening the vast distance between one and the divine. There are many categories in which people pray to God with the usage of mantras with the intention of cleaving completely to the divine, also known as moksha or nirvana. The divine-tied nature of humans enables them to keep their bonding connection with the divine.
The New Testament begins with, quote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The famous quote finds its beginnings in the origins of the Vedas. Hence, Vedic scriptures influenced not only major religions in India, but also major religions elsewhere, just as it had with Christianity.
Another influence was the instruments used in the Vedic period. Since they were made out of perishable materials, we can only learn the ancient instruments through sculptures and statues. The instruments were made with careful precision. The instruments during the Vedic period left a legacy because the instruments that survive share a similar look with the modern instruments today. 2 examples of instruments were the tabla and the sitar.
Just like today's music, instruments were essential songs because they deepen the spiritual music.
The Vedic period, records of mathematical activity, are mostly to be found in Vedic texts associated with ritual activities. The system of land grants and agricultural tax assessments required accurate measurement of cultivated areas. As land was redistributed or consolidated, problems of mensuration came up that required solutions. In order to ensure that all cultivators had equal amounts of irrigated and non-irrigated land, individual farmers in a village often had their holdings broken up in several parcels to ensure fairness. Since plots could not all be the same shape, local administrators were required to convert rectangular plots or triangular plots to squares of equivalent sizes and so on. Tax assessments were based on fixed proportions of annual or seasonal crop incomes, but could be adjusted upwards or downwards based on a variety of factors. This meant that an understanding of geometry and arithmetic was essential for revenue administrators. Mathematics was brought into use for these needs.
Now, Pythagoras, who was a Greek mathematician and philosopher around the 6th century BC, was very familiar with the Upanishads, and that's actually where he got a lot of his basic geometry. In fact, for example, the commonly known Pythagorean theorem was actually found in Bhattyana's Sutra. Also found there were examples of linear equations, quadratic equations, and square roots.
Mathematics was considerably important in the Vedic period. The Vedanta Jyotish, written around 1000 BC, included the following statement: "Just as the feathers of a peacock and the jewel stone of a snake are placed at the highest point in the body, similarly, the position of Ganit, or arithmetic operations, is placed at the highest amongst all branches of the Vedas and the Shatras.
The Indian notational system that reached the Western world through the Arabs has now been accepted universally. The idea seems so simple nowadays that its significance and profound importance is no longer appreciated. Its simplicity lies in its ability to facilitate mathematical calculations.
In the Western world, the cumbersome Roman numeral system posed as a major obstacle, and in China the pictorial script posed as a hindrance. But in India almost everything was in place to favor such a development. Though there was already a long and established history in the use of decimal numbers, the philosophical and cosmological constructs encouraged a creative and expansive approach to number theory. Panini's studies in linguistic theory and formal language, and the powerful role of symbolism and representational abstraction in art and architecture may have also provided an impetus.